What if 10 million students could tell us exactly what keeps them engaged in math and what's quietly pushing them away? Because that's essentially what happened. Over the last 18 years, more than 10 million students have participated in World Maths Day, answering over 1 billion, that's billion with a B, math questions. And today we're unpacking what that global participation reveals about mathematics engagement, productive struggle, and the critical middle school to algebra shift where so many students start to disconnect. I'm joined today by Sheila Robitaille, a veteran educator with nearly 30 years of experience in the classroom and as an administrator in both the US and Canada. She now works with 3P Learning, the organization behind World Math Day and Mathletics. All right, Sheila, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I'm excited to be here with you talking about what you've learned in your 30 years of education and how that fits into a special event we have coming up here at the end of March called World Math Day. So,
Happy to be
um, let's get started with it.
here.
When you've been around and taught for 30 years, which is incredible. When students move into the middle school era, which is where a lot of my teachers are, and they get that early algebra access, what do you think or what have you seen shifts instructionally?
Middle school's my favorite group to work with, and what I see specifically around math is that there's a big shift between, what is the elementary focus on foundational skills, things like that, number sense, operation, basic fractions, and things like that, to the shift to needing to apply those foundational skills in multi-step, much more abstract problems and things like that. And so going from concrete to abstract, this is where, we see students working with variables, working with
Yeah.
negative numbers, which they're like, whoa, how can there be less than zero? Linear relationships, making generalizations, things like that. And so quickly, middle school students find themselves having to work through problems sometimes without as much guidance as they used to
Mm,
have. They're now required to persist through struggle. And I know you talk about that an awful lot. They
yeah.
have to be organized in their thinking. They have to be able to check for reasonableness. So all of that is like, whoa, it's very foreign to
Yeah.
students, and it could be tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. I was literally just introducing the idea of imaginary and complex numbers to my students. So when you said, "What negative numbers you can go below 0?" That is exactly what I just saw in my high school experience. What have you seen about like how do you think identities kind of shift what how students see themselves as math learners when they're going from that middle or that elementary school to that middle school stage?
Well, I think in some of the better classrooms, students are now realizing that they have to think like mathematicians,
Yes.
not like calculators, right? And that can be a bit tricky, especially if they didn't have the foundation that they needed to begin with. They may struggle if with the fact that middle school math is going to require more flexibility, more conceptual understanding, um, being able to persist, that grit, that resilience in complex problems. And so that confidence can really shift if those changes aren't well supported.
Yeah, absolutely. It can. My youngest, he's in 5th grade right now. So I see the homework he does and it's 5 problems a night, which is great. And I'm not saying my elementary school student needs more homework than that. But you're right, when you get to that middle school level and then eventually to that high school level, especially when you're lacking in those foundational skills and it's a new type of number system or something that's so foreign, it can knock down their confidence and just kind of eat at them. I was teaching my Algebra 2 students this year polynomial arithmetic, right? So, let's have numbers and variables and exponents
Oh
going
boy.
on at the same time. And they had to stop me and they said, "Miss Moore, we can't divide polynomials." And I was like, "Why?" They were like, "Well, we never learned long division." And then they
Oh,
told me
wow.
that was their COVID year. They're like, "We never learned the standard algorithm for long division." So I had to, take a pause and be like, "Oh, let's all learn this together. And, just seeing them from the students who are like, what? This look on their face of terror to like, oh, it's not just me who doesn't know. And they could see that their classmates didn't know too. That was so reassuring to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great that they were able to verbalize that to you and that you were then able to shift into that, filling some of those learning gaps quite quickly. Oftentimes, teachers don't have the benefit of a class really kind of prescribing for them what,
Right.
and so you can go back and get it. So good on your
Yeah.
for being able to
Yeah.
do
Right? Who gets their kids telling you what their just-in-time intervention is? It was
that.
a, it was a great treat for me. I never thought I would have to explain
Exactly.
long division, but then my son's, best friend had to do some long division. I was like, "Listen, I can help you now." If you had asked me
Yeah,
that
there
before, then
you
I'm like,
go.
maybe not, but so okay, so we've talked a little bit about going from elementary to middle school and then thinking again even more abstractly when we're looking more towards algebra, right? We lose a lot of our students at that point. What do you think? What has your experience been with why is algebra just such a cluster sometimes, such a tipping point for our kids?
Well, it goes back to in my experience, it goes back to what we were saying before, that there may be some gaps in some of their foundational understanding, especially related to fractions and multiplicative reasoning and things like that. Because algebra is going to rely so heavily on fraction fluency, which
Mhm.
is so difficult in the elementary level. Understanding this notion of equivalence, what does
Yeah.
that really mean, and really understanding that, seeing relationships between numbers and not just, you know, kind of rotely doing operations. And so small gaps that may have been there in the elementary years become bigger obstacles, which then more errors increase, which then confidence kind of drops. So it's a bad cycle. And I don't think that kids we don't lose them in algebra because algebra is inherently hard. I really don't think so. I think we lose them when the earlier learning emphasized procedures over understanding, over concepts, and this shift to abstraction if it hasn't been really supported. It's so interesting to me that we often in elementary school really provide kids with lots of visuals, lots of models, lots of hands-on kinds of things. And then when they shift into middle school, where they're having to abstract more, we don't tend to do that as much.
Yeah,
And all of the literature out there is saying, stay with the models, stay with the
right.
models. Don't lose
Show
that.
show them, let them play with it and manipulate it, and yes, oh my gosh, that would be so great. That leads me to what I was just thinking, like, so models would definitely be one of them. What are maybe some other things that you've seen and experienced, that algebra teachers could do differently to help kind of support that and overcome those challenges? Obviously, models. I'm a big fan of that
Yeah.
too.
Don't skip it. The balance models, the algebra tiles, the graphs, all of
Yeah.
that. Again, emphasizing the meaning, the concepts over procedures, emphasizing the thinking. And the biggest one, Kristen, I think is, and again, you're going to love this, you're going to eat it up, but that's normalizing struggle.
Yes.
And focusing on building mathematical confidence. It's that growth mindset. It's that understanding that it's building that culture that says struggling doesn't mean you don't know. Struggling means you're actually learning, and
Yes.
struggling is something to celebrate.
Yes.
I think
Oh my
that's super
gosh.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so much. That's so much in alignment with what I believe, and I love that it's your answer is based on like all of these best practices that aren't new. Right? Growth mindset is
Oh,
not something that is new. Using these hands on models or visual models is not something new. But I feel like so much right now we see like what's the new shiny object in education and we go and we chase that for the sake of trying to, engage our students when really we've got these great tried and true practices that we could really be leaning on.
well, and I think, just because something has been around for a while doesn't mean that we have perfected it. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean we knew how to talk about it. Like I'll go back to growth mindset. I can talk about growth mindset all day. And we talk about it. But when you go to classrooms, do you truly see an environment that is promoting that? And there are some pretty simple moves and things that you can do to make sure you're shifting your conversations around what you're praising, what you're showing is
Yeah.
important, and that sort of thing. But while we've been talking about growth mindset for a while, I don't think it's still a a big healthy component of what I see in actual classrooms.
I love that you're calling that out. I think you're so right on that. I even have one of those posters like, "I can't do this yet," which is a
Yet,
great
yes, the
reminder.
power of yet. Yep.
Right, the power of yeah, exactly. But, it's kind of like those first week of school activities that so many teachers do, like, "Let's do a get to know you. Let's do one growth mindset thing," and they're like, "Check, we did
Yep.
growth mindset." But you're right, so we can bring back visuals, we can really focus on actually fostering that, growth mindset by engaging our kids in some productive struggle. Uh, yeah, absolutely. I love this idea. So, you have been in education, you have been a teacher, you have been an administrator, and now you do professional development. Yes?
Yes, we're an ed
Amazing.
tech company. Yep.
Yeah, what an incredible career. So now I feel like you have like this big global view of math instruction. You've taught in the US and in Canada, and you now have worked in all of these different hats. What do you see maybe other countries or just other people doing well when it comes to fostering that engagement and that productive struggle that we could maybe learn from?
Well, I don't know if there's any silver bullets, but I thought about this a lot, and um, making sure in some of my training sessions, I talk about making sure that students have the opportunity to have problems that are problematic. Oftentimes we want to hover. We want to jump in if we see the first signs of struggle. And struggle can be a really positive thing, depending on the culture of the classroom. It doesn't mean giving students something that they can't get started with, that it's so hard they don't know what to do. It's giving them things that are challenging,
Yeah.
but accessible. And then making sure that we have created a culture in the classroom that fosters a tolerance for multiple entry points, multiple approaches, and the biggest one, multiple solutions, which oftentimes drives kids crazy that there isn't one right answer. And that's not a product of them, that's a product of where they've come from in terms of what has typically happened in a classroom. And so that multiple approaches, multiple solutions, listening to others, making people's thinking and their learning public, I think is a really big asset when it comes to helping students work through productive struggles. I think, also asking the right questions, asking kids to estimate. What do you think? What do you think they'd be close to? Or asking kids to draw a model or an illustration of their thinking. And then asking them things like, how did you know that? Or what did you notice when you did that? Or how do you know for sure that's the right answer, rather than just celebrating the right answer, but digging a little deeper in how they knew and having them use some metacognition,
Mm,
making their thinking public and really celebrating that, even if they get to the wrong place, celebrating the metacognition, I think is a key to productive struggle. And so in that, we are building a classroom culture where mistakes are analyzed. They're not overly corrected right away. They're analyzed. They're celebrated. Um, and teachers are spending more time, again, we're coming back to the growth mindset, but
yeah.
spending more time praising and showing value, or valuing or honoring effort and
Mm,
strategy and pre-thinking and listening to each other's, and maybe changing your approach based on something that you heard, using the resources that are out there.
yeah.
I love it when I hear teachers talking about their favorite mistake that day,
Yes.
something, and then celebrating it that way, and really, making it like, the reason that I'm celebrating this mistake is because it shows me just how hard you were working. It shows me just how hard you were
Yeah.
thinking and where your thinking was. That's really foreign in I think in a lot of classrooms. And then for productive struggle, I mean, the only other thing that I think I could throw out is that um, multiple checkpoints with students.
Ooh,
You can break things down into smaller bits and have
yeah.
multiple checkpoints. I've seen that used quite successfully. And, that also enables teachers to and students to have successes, smaller successes along the way, building that confidence, and encouraging students to take that risk and to not be afraid that taking risk or having a wrong answer indicates that they're not smart.
You're right. Yeah, and I love that you've mentioned multiple times here that it's all about the class culture, right? A
Hmm.
lot of times we are so focused on getting through and teaching our
Yes.
content and
And I
just
get it. I
covering.
totally understand that.
Yeah, right? But
Mhm.
you're right. Our students aren't going to productively struggle for us. They're not going to be willing to take those risks and make those mistakes if our class doesn't value it. If growth mindset and productive struggle are just those check boxes for us. That
There are two things that I used to ask teachers when I would work with new
Ooh,
teachers.
yeah.
Um, One of them was I would ask them to think back to when they were in kindergarten, let's say, and ask them how many of them can remember their kindergarten teacher, and most of them could raise their hand. And I'd say, what about third grade? And they could raise their hand. What about grade six? Raise their hand. And I would tell them, look, what this tells me, what this tells you is that your students are going to remember you. You don't have any
Mm.
control over that. What you do have control over is what they're going to remember you for. That thing that you said, or that experience that you gave them. And I would also ask them, think back to their schooling, and could anybody describe to me a worksheet or something that they did out of a textbook that made a big difference in their life that they still remember today? It's something that was a foundation in their life.
Oh,
And nobody can ever remember that.
zero.
And so what do you remember? It's the projects, it's the struggles, it's the aha moments, it's the collaborations. They remember all of those things. So while they sometimes feel like the things that keep us from getting through the content, it's the things that are really going to stick with
Yeah.
students and matter.
You are so right, and I feel like there are so many things that I could just, like, ask you about and we could dive into. Um, I am loving this. You're a wealth of knowledge right now. So, thinking back, including those visuals, thinking about all my 612 teachers here, make the math visual, give them something to help them with that abstraction, foster that growth mindset in a way that is authentic and real and not just a checkbox.
That's
Thinking
right.
about that metacognition and like what are you actually thinking and how is it going? And I love that you highlighted my favorite mistake. That is my favorite thing to do in my classroom when they're all working so hard on an inquiry based task and I see like two or three of them get the wrong answer, but for such a great reason. And I go to the
Mhm.
board and I put it down and I'm like, this is such a great answer. I've seen it so many places. I'm like, it's wrong, but it's perfect. And here's
Mhm.
why. And then the kids who got it wrong are like, wait, but she's excited? Like, what did I do? I was like, I know
That's
exactly
right.
what you were thinking. And sometimes that's all they need is to know that we see their thinking and we value their thinking, even if they don't get the answer right.
That's right. That's right.
And I
And
love that.
teachers need to model their thinking as well.
Yeah.
When we're always learning something new, and to share that with students, to share our own struggles, and to share times when we got the answer wrong and what we gained from that. you
Yeah.
know um, one of my favorite TED talks is called the Super Mario Effect, and I love it because it's really talking about the gamification of learning and kind of justifying it. And so, of
Yeah.
course, that's going to be right up my alley. Um, but to make a very long story short, what he's doing in this TED talk, talking about an experiment that he did, was seeing how persistent participants in this experiment would be based on the removal of failure or the removal of risk.
Oh,
And all he did, he had two groups. All he did in one case was gave them a task. And basically, it was a coding task. And basically, in basic coding task, if
sure.
they got it wrong, then they would lose 5 points, five non existent points, but they would lose 5 points. And the other group didn't lose points. And the difference in terms of the success level was interesting, as well as how many times the participants approached or attempted the activity. Those who weren't worried about failure attempted it far more times than those who were worried about losing points. And so we can incorporate that into our classrooms. And then in terms of the gamification piece, he
Yeah.
he attached that to games like Super Mario.
Yeah.
He talked about he was 8 years old. He learned about Super Mario, and he was really obsessed with it. And he would go to school the next day and he would be talking to his friends. How far did you get? What did you? And nobody was ever worried about the fact that they died that night.
Right.
They were all worried about how much further had they gotten. And in their thinking, when they did die, when the turtle got them or whatever,
Yep.
it was all about, oh yeah, okay, now I notice, and the next time I do this, I need to jump a little further, or I need to duck here. And
Yeah.
that's what we want in our classrooms, is for kids to not worry about the failure piece, but worry about learning from each
Yes.
and every time they don't get the right answer. And
Um,
so ways to incorporate that into the classroom, I think will speak volumes.
That's incredible, and I'm definitely going to add that to my list of TED Talks to watch. You're right. It's all about learning from that failure and not just like harping on it. Like it's okay. We're still working towards the same end goal, and this time you're going to approach it in a different way. So gamification, that's a big part of what you do now with
Yeah.
3P.
Mhm.
Awesome. So I know with them, you guys have an event called World Maths Day that's coming up, and you guys have had over 10 million students and over 1 billion questions answered.
Mhm.
That's incredible. I would love to hear what have you learned about this. Tell us more about what this program is and how we could bring that so we can boost engagement in our classrooms too.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you asked, because I want everybody to take this as my personal invitation to come join us. So World Math Day is going to be on March 25th. The company I work for is called 3P Learning, and we have educational products. One of the products is Mathletics. And in Mathletics, there's a thing called live Mathletics, which is a math fluency race practice,
Okay.
what have you. And so what happens on World Math Day is we are a global company. And so kids from all around the world, classes from all around the world, are competing in these little mini math fluency races. And depending on your grade level, you're required to compete in different levels
Sure.
of the program, or of different mathematical levels, ability levels. And students compete in 20 of these little mini races. And then we look at points, and we celebrate the top score getters, student wise,
Yeah.
class wise, school wise. And the thing I love about this, Kristen, is so many of the schools, we've been doing this for 18 years now.
Oh my gosh.
In 2011, I want to say, the Guinness Book of World Records indicated this was the largest mathematical competition in the world. Um,
Wow.
and the reason it's large, though, Kristen, is that it's accessible to everyone. Kindergarten to grade 8, it doesn't matter. It's free. There's absolutely no obligation to come in and join us. And, it's like, unlike so many math competitions where they're really going after the elite mathematicians,
Mhm.
every student can participate in this, and they leave thinking, oh well, I just participated in a math competition, which has that good feel vibe about it. Some schools are so into it, they have kids dress up, and they do math things all day, so it's like a
Oh
math
gosh.
carnival, but they do their competitions as well. They do videos and the whole nine yards. It's been going on for a while.
Oh,
But really, it's free. Any teacher can sign up their class for free. And then what'll happen is, if you sign up the class, then as of March 12th, everyone, if you're not already using Mathletics, has access to Mathletics for that period of time. They can practice,
okay.
they can see what it's all about. They'll get some instructions on that. And then on the day, everybody logs in and starts to compete. And so, and that's really all it is to it.
That's
So
so
anybody can
cool.
go to, it's 3p.com/world dash maths with the S, maths. It's global, right? Some people
Right,
around the
right.
world call it maths. So it's world maths with the S dash day. And
Awesome.
we can put that in there. And I want to personally invite everyone to come join us. It's also good for homeschool. That can be individual
Oh,
students as well. But most of the time, it's classroom teachers who sign their classes up and then get them going. It
that's
can take a
so
little
cool.
portion of the day, or you can make it a whole day thing. But it's very exciting, and schools get really. And of course, we also provide prizes and things to the top schools and the top districts and the students and all of that. Some nice little swag, but it's just a fun way to be paired up with students from around the world as you're
Wow.
competing. So, kind of meeting new students in new schools
Yeah.
and just compete in a very accessible math competition.
That is very cool. I was a mathlete in middle school.
There you go. There
Um,
you go.
I had a mathlete shirt, and you're right, I think it was a little bit more, exclusive back then. Now I feel, like, braggy saying it out loud. I
Yeah, you
definitely
should.
felt nerdy and super cool as a 6th grader with my mathlete shirt, but I love that this is accessible, and you said that all the grade levels can do it, right? So, like, my high school
Absolutely.
friends, that's cool, and
Absolutely.
so when they're competing, they're not competing against other grade levels, right? They're competing
No,
on theirs?
there may there may be a few grade levels,
Oh, sure.
but like your high school people are going to be competing in. They'll have So they do 20 competitions. Five of them might be at a level that's a little lower, five might be at a little middle level, and five might be at a little higher. So there is some, again, to
Oh,
make
good.
it accessible, there is some
Yeah,
variance in that. But they're not going to be competing against your kindergartners. You're not going to be
okay,
competing with grade three kids or anything like that.
good.
But they will have the opportunity so that everybody can feel success. They will have the opportunity to compete in some of the levels that might be, a little lower if they need
Yeah.
that, and then certainly some above their grade level as well if they can do that. And they can do competitions all day long. 20 of them are it's 20 that actually contribute to getting their points, but they can contribute all day long if they want to and enjoy still interacting with other students around the world.
Ooh, okay, that's really cool to know. I'm going to have to look. We're on a block schedule, and so I'm going to have to see what
Yeah,
classes I have on March 25th. And again, we're going to
yeah,
link all of this in the show notes. So if you were like, it was 3p.com/what? There's an S in math. If you were just like, what did she just say? Don't worry.
yes.
We've got you covered. Not a problem. That is super exciting, and I love knowing that they can do it for just part of class. It could be like what we do that day. I
That's
could
right.
have my department doing it. We could all be like, "Okay, today's the day." And okay, I love this. You're giving me so many ideas for March,
Fine.
which
Great.
now just sounds like just the best math month because we have Pi Day
Yes,
midway
that's
through
true.
the month, right? And then we've got World Maths Day right at the end, coming right before my spring break. So I
There you go.
100% know that my
Oh, there you
teachers
go.
are going to need something to keep their kids from bouncing off the
Keeping them
walls.
engaged. There you go. It'll be
Oh,
fun. You could make it a whole math day if you want,
yeah.
and that's what some schools do. And like I said, kids dress up. They they do all fun videos beforehand, kind of, little pep rallies and all kinds of fun things. So
Oh my gosh.
you know,
Okay,
you
this
can you
sounds so
can
fun.
you can just type in World Math Day. You can go to YouTube and see all sorts of videos of what other classes and other schools have done and things like that too.
Ooh, okay, you guys. So for sure on my YouTube show notes, I will try to make a link to some of those for you guys to see as well. This is very exciting. So you said that this is hosted in Mathletics. Can you tell us just a little bit more about Mathletics? Because I haven't heard of that one before.
So Mathletics is a resource tool for kindergarten to high school, and it's curriculum aligned. So wherever you are, it'll be aligned to your specific curriculum. It is based on kind of a balanced numeracy approach to mathematics. So there are options in Mathletics in this gamified program where the kids are working on curriculum aligned new learnings and question banks and things like
Yeah.
that. There are also opportunities in there for deeper learning and problem solving challenges and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And there are also opportunities for foundational fluency skills like live mathletics and a few other games that are in the program. Lots of different reward systems for students. It's a very engaging program, but it also on the teacher side, it makes teachers differentiation magicians. With a few clicks of a
Ooh.
button, teachers can make sure that students are getting content at their level at any given time. And they get data that comes in from the program in real time so they can make decisions about where to take the teaching and learning in the middle of a class period if they need to. So it's not designed to take the place of teaching. It is definitely an enrichment program, but it can
Yeah.
really be a teacher's best friend.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the 3 Ds there. It's digital, it's differentiated, and it's data-driven decisions.
There you
So,
go. That's right.
that is definitely something for everyone to check out. Before or after we all engage in this World Maths Day here at the end of
Well,
the month.
you'll get like a sample of it. You'll get
Yeah.
Mathletics for a period of time, and so you can check it out.
Perfect. I love it. Ah, Sheila, this has been so great to sit and chat with you and to just kind of see what you've seen and your experience in middle school and high school math. So I'm so grateful that you came on to chat with me today. And I'm really excited to let everyone know about World Maths Day. I hadn't heard of this before. I'm really excited that we can now share this with the whole modern math teacher family. I'd love to know just your parting thoughts. What is something that you think, oh gosh, I'm like, I don't even know what I want to know right now. What I don't know. If teachers walk away with just one thing, I guess, from our conversation today, what do you hope it is?
Oh, you say it a lot in your podcast, but every person can be a math person. And it is so hard when we hear that from our young learners when they decide early on that I just can't do math. And I absolutely, you know, tip my hat to teachers who can convince kids that, you know what, every person is a math person and really believe it. And do that by setting up cultures in classrooms um, that really, you know, challenge students and really have them realize that smart is not something they are, smart is something they become with effort. And so I congratulate teachers who are able to do that.
Oh my gosh, Sheila, that's so fantastic. I love that parting thought. Everyone can be a math person. Everyone is a math person, and we're going to show them all that when they join the competition on March
Absolutely.
25th, World Math Day. Thank you so much for joining me, Sheila, and thank you to the Modern Math Teacher family for listening to us. Until next time, I want you guys to keep the problems problematic, keep the thinking going. I loved when you said that. That was so great. And as always, you guys keep it real. Sheila, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
It was mine. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.